Hey everyone, welcome back to English 217/417. Just quick video to touch base today and talk about the yellow wallpaper, which is what we read for today. First of all, a few quick reminders. If you haven't yet downloaded the Teams app, go ahead and do that. And then make sure that you're on the English 217 Gothic American Literature team, to which I've added all of you, so you should be on automatically. And also remember that the way that we're doing the rest of this class is that we will have discussion forums for each of the things that we're reading. And then 3 or 4 people will start those off for each day. And then you'll join in and respond to their initial posts for each class. And you just need to do that before the next class. And for those who are starting off the discussions, try to make sure you do those before the time that class would have started, 1:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Pacific Central Time if you're, or Pacific Standard Time if you're somewhere else. So that's it for logistics. Now, the yellow wallpaper. First of all, amazing forum posts so far. It's been really awesome to read them. The people who started the conversation, great insights, and everybody who's joined in, as far as I've read in the first 40 minutes or so since class began, really insightful things, and yeah, just great job. So let's keep that up. Also, for those who did the No Country for Old Men bonus posts, great. You know, I responded to those, and I think you all had some really perceptive things to say about that film. So I just want to add a few things about the yellow wallpaper, just to kind of continue our conversation. For those who haven't posted yet, for you to be thinking about as well as you do so. So first of all, you know, interestingly, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she said, wanted to, quote, reach Dr. Weir, who is the, and he's mentioned by name in the story, who was the doctor who treated her for, quote, hysteria, unquote, which, as I'm sure many of you know, a lot of your psychology majors, was the diagnosis that was given basically to women in the late 1800s who, well, displayed symptoms of depression or just general, sometimes just general dislike for the sort of strictures under which they were living. So my question is, Perkins was explicitly writing, hopefully, so that Dr. Weir would see it, and she said that he might change his ways. Now, and there's some rumors that, oh, he did end up reading her story and he did change what he was doing. Those have been proven to be false. He didn't. So the question is, to what degree is art or literature utilitarian? If she wasn't able to effect the change in the medical community immediately that she wanted to, was what she wrote successful? And I know that's kind of a leading question, but I think it's one that we've been asking ourselves throughout the course. To what degree is an audience essential for art? And is there some good that can come from it that isn't just purely, oh, I want to, you know, change people's opinion about this thing, so I'm going to write this story about it. And I ask that because I think all of us probably, everybody that posted in the forum, and certainly myself, all of us had some sort of visceral reaction to the particular creeping horror that we find in this story. And yeah, so, you know, to what degree is it literary? Now, let's get right into the Gothic of it. First of all, notice right from the beginning, it takes on Gothic conventions. We hear about ancestral halls, haunted and romantic. It's a colonial mansion and a hereditary estate. Now, in what way is this Gothic? Well, first of all, just having an old building is inherently Gothic, all the way back from British and German Gothic stories that involved castles and things like that, and now into the new the New World, we have the dark forests, and we have old and mysterious buildings and that kind of thing. So the story is putting itself firmly in that vein. But it also, if you have a hereditary or colonial mansion, a hereditary estate in the early or the late 1800s, um, already this is going to be inherently something that involved slaves, or at least patriarchy uh, of some sort. And by patriarchy, I don't mean just generally, oh, well, men seem to order women around or something like that. I mean specifically the rule of men and the passing of property from man to man to man without um, the input or the consideration of women. I mean, technically, the inheritance laws dictated that for the most part things went from male to male to male. So anyway, the story starts with that kind of potential background of oppression or whatever, but it's primarily about a different kind of horror. So that's a question we ought to ask ourselves oftentimes in these Gothic stories, not and not treating them as just mere horror stories, like what scares us the most or something like that, but what's the nature of the horror, and in this case, it seems clear that the idea of domesticity, or being forced to lead a circumscribed life where you're only allowed to do these certain things and you do them over and over again, that's part of the horror. Having a baby, as well, the lack of agency that the narrator has. And what that means, that's a big concept and an important concept, agency. What that means is there's other people who make important decisions for you. It's an infantilizing dynamic. So if you can imagine, um, for example, if you were in a coma of sorts, but you're aware and you can hear what's going on, but you can't move, you're paralyzed, you can't speak, can't open your eyes even or blink or anything. And you hear people around you discussing your fate, saying, well, maybe she should just be, taken off life support. And, she's clearly in a vegetative state, but you know that your mind is fully intact, etc. It's a similar sort of feeling that we get being a mother and a wife in the late 1800s and being told, oh, you're just, you're overexcited. So no more work for you, no more writing, just rest quietly up in this nursery. There's lots of symbolism to the room itself. Um, stay up here in this nursery and rest quiet. Um, Further note, unreliable narrator. Clearly we have one. I mean, by the end, the narrator is insane by all accounts. I'm curious at what point you felt like she became an unreliable narrator. Was she at the beginning for some reason, or if not, at what point did she become so? Another question, the very ending. Several people said, oh, I don't know about the ending, it didn't seem as dramatic as I would have thought. Her husband just faints and then she crawls over him. On the other hand, I find it much more horrific than the Edgar Allan Poe type story of, well, and then I chopped her head off with an axe or whatever, because it's so subtly described. We don't even, she doesn't say, and then I went insane and I killed my husband, as she crawls around the room, obsessed, with the wallpaper, she just has to, go over her husband. And so we get this passed out husband and a narrator that doesn't realize that she's, no longer in control of her own faculties. And we, because we've been being told the story by her, are drawn into that drama and I think experience it more strongly because of it. At any rate, keep up the great forum posts. It's been awesome to read. And there's more to talk about there. But for Thursday, remember, we're reading A Good Man is Hard to Find. We'll have our conversation started by Renee, Mallory, Daniel, and Chase. And before we begin Flannery O'Connor, I just want to give her a quick plug. I consider her to be the greatest probably the greatest Christian writer of the past 50, 70 years, and at least writing in English that I'm aware of, with the possible exception of a Tolkien or maybe a Lewis. But her stories won't strike you that way at the outset, probably. And A Good Man is Hard to Find is, in some ways, one of the more difficult ones, especially to see those sorts of overtones. And again, those who are starting the conversation don't feel as if you need to find those things, write about the things that strike you. But for everybody, be looking for those things, potential visual symbolism, but also just thematically. The conversation that happens at the end of the story. What is the argument, as we've been calling it, that's being made by Flannery? And quick note, somebody mentioned this, and this is for everybody. In the Flannery O'Connor book, there's two, it's her complete collected works, and I intentionally have students buy it because it's not that expensive, and I think it's an invaluable volume just to keep. Again, because of the place I think that Flannery holds in American Letters. But quick note, there's two different collections of short stories in that book. One's called A Good Man is Hard to Find, and that is, the titular story, but there are several stories in there. And so to find the particular stories we're reading, you're going to have to go to the short story collections and find the page numbers on those table of contents, because you won't find it in the table of contents at the beginning of the book. If I remember and or have time, I'll go and change our reading schedule to include the page numbers of the other stories that we'll read. But anyway, so I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that and to continue to read your thoughts on Yellow Wallpaper. Now, I hope you're all doing great. I know that probably most of you are at home and adjusting to a new way of doing college, and also just a new way of doing life for the time being. This is unprecedented ground. And so I'm praying for all of you that you're doing well and that you're finding ways to thrive and make the most of this time that none of us would have planned. So until Thursday, take care, and miss y'all. Have a great day. Talk to you later.